Welcome to the Young Entrepreneurs Podcast. We are on our 15th episode of our series Backstory, that is Diary of Success, and we are fortunate enough today to have Rob Herold, who is the owner and operator of the Chick-fil-A in Bowie, Maryland. Rob has been in the chicken selling business most of his life and building a career in leadership, customer service, and community impact. And we will talk about his journey, lessons he's learned, and how he defines success. So my first question is, what is your backstory a little bit, and how did you get started in the restaurant business? I know that we were just talking about it before.
Yeah. No, this is great. First, Spencer, thank you for inviting me to be here. I think this is really cool. I've always wanted to start my own podcast, so you are living my dream. Okay, so my backstory. I'll give you the express version. So I started my Chick-fil-A journey when I was 17 years old.
Now, does it go earlier than 17, or is 17 the crucial
So
starting point?
17 is when I had my first Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. I had actually eaten Chick-fil-A before.
Okay.
When I was in 5th grade. I was a student at a local school, and they actually sold Chick-fil-A for lunch. And I didn't know anything about it other than the chicken nuggets were really small and rounds, and they were very different than other chicken nuggets at other places. But I was in 5th grade, and that was the only time other than when I was 17 when I had actually had Chick-fil-A. So I forgot all about that. But my first job was McDonald's. Worked there when I was 15. Worked there for about a year and a half. Felt like that wasn't going to be my career path. I moved on to the next place at Papa John's. I worked there for about 6 months. Both of those restaurants actually are in Bowie on Route 450. And I'm telling you that for a reason here. But at age 17, I was working at Papa John's, and my parents were telling me, you're working a lot of Sundays, kind of wants you to be off on Sundays so you come to church with us. And I thought, well, it's kind of hard. The restaurant industry, everybody works on Sunday. And my mom said, there's this place called Chick-fil-A that's open up right by Bay Sox Stadium. Why don't you go apply there? So they hadn't opened yet. I walked in. The owner operator, he interviewed me on the spot and hired me and said, you start later tonight. We have this thing called a dedication dinner happening tonight. I didn't even know what that meant, but gave me a uniform, and I came to the dinner, and we were celebrating the restaurant opening, and they were dedicating the restaurant to the community, to the team, and to God. And they were saying, this is something that we really want to do well for the people we serve. Very, very different than McDonald's and Papa John's. But I ended up working there, and it was probably February, I think, when I got hired. And
Yes.
by April, they had said to me, hey, would you like to be a team leader? I didn't know what that meant. All I knew is I could get some keys, and all I know is I could get some keys and do refunds. And so I
Okay.
said, okay, let's do it. So I became team leader. And then after a couple of months, they were doing some grand openings in Maryland. And the owner of that restaurant, his name was Eric. He invited me. He said, Rob, why don't you come to, actually my name back then was Robbie. So they called me Robbie. So, hey, Robbie, would you want to come with us to Germantown to help open this Chick-fil-A? I said, sure, let's go do that. So after a couple days, he took us all to dinner. And at that dinner, Eric was asking me questions about what my passions were and what I was hoping to do with my career. He said, if you ever wanted to own your own business. And I said, yeah, love to do that. And he said, the next question he asked me changed my life. He said, have you ever wanted to own your own Chick-fil-A? And I was 17 years old, and I had never, ever thought of that. And he told me that if that was something I wanted to do, he would help me think through that and help me on that journey. And I, at that point in my life, at 17 years old, decided that is what I wanted to do. And of course, I went home, was so excited, went and told my parents. And, of course, just like any good parents would do, they told me there's no way in the world that you're ever going to do that. So you need to pick something else. And that made me, just like any good teenager, it made me want to do it even more. So I went to college, got a degree, came back, and I worked with Eric from 2001 until 2009. In 2009, I was selected to become the owner-operator of a Chick-fil-A franchise in Bethesda, Maryland, still Montgomery Mall. I was in the mall for, let's see here, 7 years. I learned a lot in a mall. Malls are very different than freestanders. There's no drive-through, very, very small team, but you learn a lot about business. And in 2016, had the opportunity to relocate and move to a new Chick-fil-A restaurant that was being built on 450, right between McDonald's and Papa
Oh,
John's
yeah.
where I grew up working. And so now my restaurant is right between where I started, where I got my start in the restaurant industry all those years ago. So I've been in that location since 2016, 9 years coming up. Actually, at the end of October will be the 9-year anniversary of that restaurant.
Have you been approached to transfer over to the one in Annapolis, or are you kinda comfortable with the one in Bowie?
Oh, I love where I'm at. They don't really move us around. It's kind of like when a new restaurant opens, you can apply to see if it's something that they'll select you for. But Chick-fil-A is one of the most difficult businesses I would say to get into. Just statistically, sometimes I don't even they have between 50 to 70,000 people a year apply to become Chick-fil-A owner operators, and they only open about 100 Chick-fil-A's a year. So if you do the math on that, probability is pretty small. They generally give a little bit of priority to people who are already Chick-fil-A operators. So if an operator is already an operator and they want to relocate, they have a little bit of an edge over someone who's never been with Chick-fil-A before. There also are restaurants where they give an operator a second location or even a third location. In fact, the guy who owns the ones in Annapolis, his name's Mike. He's a friend of mine. He has 3 Chick-fil-A's. That is the most rare accomplishment that you can get at Chick-fil-A. I think there are less than 20 total operators in the entire country that have 3 Chick-fil-A's. I might be wrong. It might be a little bit more than 20, but there's not many. So it's definitely it's a difficult thing to get into Chick-fil-A. Once you're in, it's the most amazing company. I couldn't speak highly enough about Chick-fil-A. I love what we do. I love who we are, and I love what we stand for.
Now, would you say that the competitiveness is a little bit similar to In-N-Out being a private company, family run a little bit?
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about In-N-Out. I've had In-N-Out. I actually like them a lot. But from what I understand, they are a small privately owned company. I believe that they're franchised. The Chick-fil-A model, each individual restaurant is owned by an individual owner operator. So Chick-fil-A, the parent brand, owns the brand Chick-fil-A, but they don't own the restaurants.
Okay.
The operators in the communities own the restaurants. And that's really, I think you may laugh at this. This is what they call the Chick-fil-A secret sauce is the operator. That is the secret sauce to Chick-fil-A is the operator model and how the restaurants are run by people that live in the community.
So, I know I don't mean to kind of divert, but I know that, I think Raising Cane's does a little bit not the fact that they're private, but the fact that they select who they think is the best candidate to come in and open the store up and then run it as the owner or the operator of the store. I don't really know much about their
Talking about
business.
Raising Cane's?
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't know much about Raising Cane's other than their sauce is pretty tasty. The other thing I know about Raising Cane's is they seem to just love to put them next to Chick-fil-A's.
And the bank as well.
Yep. I would tell you that I almost, if I had to guess, I think their strategy is almost to figure out where our Chick-fil-A is going up and how can we get next to one. Which, I mean, if let's be honest, it's kind of a smart
It
strategy
is.
because there's already a lot of demand. Chick-fil-A is not going to put a location somewhere that there aren't going to be people wanting chicken, right? And there's a whole day of the week that we don't even sell chicken. So they have like an edge on Sundays for us because they know they open and we don't. But as far as their model, again, I don't think that they're franchised. I think they're, again, corporately owned, just like In-N-Out is. And the way they select their folks is a model that they follow. But I feel like there are always things that we can learn as a business. We are very different. Who we are and how we serve people, we're very, very different.
Do you think that not being open on Sundays is that it helps your competitors to kind of get more customers and to make more sales, or do you think it's kind of a pro that you guys aren't open 7 days a week?
This is an interesting question. I like this question. When we made the decision to not open on Sunday, it was before Chick-fil-A was even in existence. The founder of Chick-fil-A, his name's Truett Cathy. He opened a restaurant many, many, many years ago, 1946 in Atlanta, Georgia. It's actually in a little town called Hapeville, and it's called the Dwarf House. It was called the Dwarf House because it was just so small. I can't remember how many seats it had, but this little area we're sitting in right now, this picnic area outside, is bigger than the original restaurant was. It was very small. And at that restaurant, he was open 24 hours a day. And it was really at the beginning just him and his brother Ben who opened the restaurant. And he had a few other people, I guess, that worked on their staff, but it was mainly just them. And they had a little apartment right next to the restaurant. and they would take turns working overnight to make sure it was open. Well, by the end of that first week, Saturday ended and Sunday rolled around, and they looked at each other and said, "You know what? We need a break. We're going to stay closed on Sunday tomorrow." It was not uncommon back then for things to be closed on Sunday anyway. Things were just never open on Sunday. As things started to open on Sunday and as time progressed, they made a commitment to stay closed on Sunday. And when Chick-fil-A was in the Chick-fil-A sandwich was invented at that dwarf house. That's where Truett invented the Chick-fil-A sandwich. Actually, he invented the chicken sandwich. There was no such thing as a chicken sandwich before Truett came. But that's a fun story too, how he invented that. But when he invented that, he first tried to sell the sandwich to other restaurants to let them sell his chicken sandwich. And he found that they weren't doing it right. So he said, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. So he decided to open the very first Chick-fil-A in a mall, Greenbrier Mall, in 1967. That's also in Atlanta. It was the very first restaurant inside of a mall. So Chick-fil-A didn't just invent the chicken sandwich, they also invented the mall food court. And they were closed on Sunday back then, and they have remained closed since. And it points back to a couple of things. The first, I think during my story, I told you, one of the reasons I worked at Chick-fil-A at the very, very beginning was because they were closed on Sunday. People love having that set day off where they can spend time with their families. They can spend time recovering. They can spend time if they're a person of faith, they can go to church. And it's just a day to give back to our team. So Sunday is safe. There's never a time where Chick-fil-A is going to open on Sunday. The other thing that I will tell you about Chick-fil-A, and this is more about Chick-fil-A as an organization, is back in 1980, Chick-fil-A was at a very difficult time financially where they were trying to grow. There was a lot of debt. The economy wasn't great. And they really needed to figure out who we are as a company. And the founder and his team went on a retreat to figure that out. And they came up with a statement that still to this day exists. It's called our corporate purpose. And the corporate purpose has two parts. The first part says to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us. And the second part is and to have a positive impact or influence on all who come into contact with Chick-fil-A. Those two things are what guide our decision making as a company. And every decision we make, we filter through those two things. Being closed on Sunday honors both of those things. So I would say the Sunday thing is going to be safe. Now, if our competitors can benefit from that, well, that's great for them. But I will tell you that we do more in business in 6 days than most restaurants do in 7. And I think there's something to be said about that. So your Sunday story.
So you think it kind of gives you a competitive edge?
I think it gives us an opportunity to stand out. It really does. I mean, you just think about what other brands are closed on Sunday. I mean, other than banks.
Yeah.
Right? Banks are closed on Sundays. But like thinking of restaurants that are closed on Sunday, one of the busiest days for restaurants. So it gives us an edge in a sense that people see that we stand for purpose more than profit. It's not just about how much we make. It's about who we are. Good question.
I'm going off of that. I know it's gonna. Do you think that it's beneficial now from when you worked at McDonald's and Taco John's, if they do like versus now working at Chick-fil-A, where it's kind of you were meaning where the company gives you the day off, and that's kind of how the whole company does it.
I could have said to them, I need Sundays off, and they could have given it to me. But the thing with Chick-fil-A is I never had to say that. It was never even a thought to whether or not I had to ask off for Sundays. And I have friends who, sorry, we're short staffed. We need you. So there was just never a risk of me needing to work on Sunday. And over the years, what do I do on my Sundays? Well, sometimes I work on Sunday myself, but it's a day where I can really focus on what I feel is important for me.
No, I think you already answered the second question, but when did you know you wanted to own and operate a Chick-fil-A? I think you already said that.
Way earlier,
17.
way earlier than I thought I would. It was very, very early in my life. I was 17 years old. I mean, who decides what they're going to do for their life at age 17? So that was me. And it seemed to work out. I don't know. I'm still doing it. It's been this coming February, it'll be 25 years for me. And so to be 42 years old and have 25 years of a career under my belt, it's pretty unique to have that story.
Now, is there anything else you would have thought you wanted to do, whether it was starting your own business or going and doing something else? But I mean, it's not to say that brand loyalty isn't important, but meaning some people after a while, they go, I want to go and try this thing out, hit rock bottom and learn versus trying to stay with the company and then going.
Yeah. No, there was a moment when I was before I became selected as the owner operator, I almost left Chick-fil-A. I actually almost quit. It was in my 20s and I was not making any growth. I had 2 or 3 managers that were ahead of me and they weren't going anywhere. And so that meant I wasn't going anywhere. And I wasn't making enough money, I thought. And I thought, you know what? Is this dream of Chick-fil-A really worth chasing? So my dad, he said, hey, there's this new place opening down the road called Potbelly.
Okay.
In Annapolis. Said they're a new brand to the area. They're going to be growing, and I think that you should go and check that out. So I did. I interviewed with them, and they interviewed me on the spot. And they hired me on the spot and said, "You are hired. If you want, you can be a store manager when this store opens." And so I was going to leave. I was going to go be a manager. And the day that I went to go tell the owner of my location, Eric, the day I was going to go tell him I was quitting, the general manager of our location just resigned suddenly. He just quit. He turned his resignation in, and I walked in, and Eric looked at me and said, "Hey, Matt quit." And I was shocked. No one had seen that coming. And so, of course, I wasn't going to tell Eric right there and then that I was quitting. So I called Potbelly and I said, "Hey, I need a little bit of time before I can start because I need to help, my business here, my restaurant that I currently work for." And they said, "That's fine. Give you a couple weeks." And a couple weeks went by. And then one of my best friends, who's to this day is still one of my best friends, he was one of the managers there. He just quit. I had not told anyone that I had gotten a job at Potbelly. And so he quit and I still couldn't leave because of the other manager. And now there were 2 managers that were gone. And the owner of the restaurant, he was just scrambling. He was like, "I don't know what we're going to do." He's like, "Robbie, can you help me? Help me find a manager to help replace all these things." And so I told him I would help him because Eric cared about me and I wanted to be loyal to him and to help him. So I stayed to help him. And I called and asked Potbelly a couple weeks later, "Hey, can you still hold on to my job?" And they said, "I'm sorry, we can't hold your job anymore." And so I had to actually let that job go. And I never told Eric. I still to this day never told Eric. Eric, no one knows. This interview is me confessing to the world that I almost quit Chick-fil-A. You heard it here first, folks. But I helped him. We did an interview search. We ended up finding a few managers. And at the end of that interview search, Eric sat me down. He said, "I need to have a meeting with you." And at that meeting, I was thinking that he found out I was going to quit and he was going to fire me. And instead of firing me, he told me, he said, "Robbie, you stepped up in a big way. You helped me find some leaders that we needed." He said, "I asked you to help me find my new general manager and you did. And that's you." And so he made me the general manager of the location at that time. So as far as brand loyalty doesn't mean as much as loyalty to people that you care about and that care about you. And that's something I learned about at Chick-fil-A. That was my almost Potbelly story instead of Chick-fil-A. And I have no idea where my life would be if I would have left Chick-fil-A. There were also a few rock bottom moments as an owner operator in the mall. The mall is a very difficult location to own a restaurant. It's very slow. The income's not strong. You have to do everything, but stuck with it. And then in my freestander that I'm at now, there have been moments where I've thought about what could I do? But there is just something about pursuing something and doing what you set out to do in the beginning and asking yourself, am I still able to still able to afford or have profit in what I do? In other words, make money. And is the time that I have, am I able to do things with my time that I want to do things? Those are the 3 circles that the Venn diagram, if you think about what are the 3 areas of life that you find the most fulfillment in, it's purpose, it's profit or income, and it's time. I can't think of another P word to go with time, but it's like the 3 P's, T instead of P. And right in the middle of those 3 circles is Chick-fil-A for me, is being an owner operator Chick-fil-A. So
So they have to kind of have a sweet spot a little bit.
I think if someone doesn't find something that is in the intersection of those 3 circles, I think they are going to continue searching and they're going to try to find that thing. Do I believe that someone needs to find that in a job? I don't think that's necessarily true. It doesn't have to be a job that you find those 3 things. But I think in life, if you want to be content and find happiness in where you are, you have to satisfy those 3 areas: purpose, time, and income. Those are the three.
Now, I know that what was the biggest challenge you faced on the way to becoming an owner/operator?
The biggest challenge on my way to becoming or since I became an operator?
Becoming an owner/operator.
My biggest challenge in becoming an owner operator was just dealing with rejection, dealing with disappointment. I think today people really think, you can get anything you need pretty quickly. If you don't know something, you can open your phone and you can ask Siri or ask Google or ask whoever, and you'll find it out, right? There's just a lot of opportunities in life to get what you want. If there's something that you really, really want and you keep getting rejected for it, or you see the pathway is really hard, people are like, I don't want to work that hard, or I don't want to wait that long. And that's Chick-fil-A. I mean, there's just, again, I mentioned there's 50 to 70,000 people a year that apply for 100 Chick-fil-A locations. And again, I don't know the math on that,
Yeah.
but it's pretty difficult. And so it's a pathway that has no guarantees. And there's a lot of other things out there that you could do with your time. It's like I could have spent my entire, 10-year career at Chick-fil-A. I was there for 8 years, but I could have spent 10 years there trying to get in, interview with Chick-fil-A and get told no. And at the end of that rainbow, I don't know what I would have done, but it worked out for me. And I think for me, it's just dealing with this idea that it might not work out. And if you can get over that in whatever dream that you're pursuing, if you can get over the fact that things might not work out, but you're going to still try, you'll accomplish way more than you ever thought you could. And that's true. That's what happened to me.
Now, kind of looking at today, I know that you said a lot of people give up easily. Do you think a lot of people feel that they're entitled, meaning that their parents give them a lot of opportunities, but they feel as though that they're supposed to have everything, meaning people are supposed to give them things. They're not supposed to go out and work for it and fail as they
Uh,
went along.
I wouldn't say that I think that lots of people are entitled. I mean, there is entitlement out there. I think that people, I mean, if you've ever if you ever sat in a drive-through and you're sitting there in line and you're like, why is this taking so long? Like I should be able to get to my order quickly. Like, well, who says that? Like, I mean, the team behind the counter, they're working as hard as they can. Maybe they don't have enough workers. Maybe they ran out of food. Maybe this or that. And so, I think we as a culture, we've been blessed with a lot of things. Can that create entitlement? Potentially. Um, I think that it's been true for generations. It's this idea of pursuing something that is hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it, but it's not. And I think that's why, the people that make it all the way through are the people that really dig deep and figure out that the things in life that are meaningful, that are meant to have, are meant to be pursued. And they're meant to be pursued with intent. And I think every person has an opportunity to do something they never thought they could do. But whether or not they ever get to do it, it depends on how hard they want to work to get there. So now I've been all over the world. It's not just America. I've been all over the world, and there's people all over the world, and it is universal that there are just a lot of opportunities out there for a lot of people all over the world. But again, no matter whether you're here in the United States or in Nairobi, Kenya, or in the Dominican Republic or Panama or Argentina, I'll be in Argentina in a couple days. It doesn't matter what opportunities are out there. It just is a matter of you as an individual. Are you able to see the vision for what you want to accomplish and then chase it until you get it?
I think what I was trying to drive at is the fact that um, I know for me personally, a lot of people obviously since 2020. Now I don't need to work as hard. I'm entitled to certain things. People are supposed to give me things. I don't need to work for them or put in the extra long hours or dedication in that. It's just going to be handed to me and I'm not going to have to do more than what is expected of me. And I think that that's kind of what people my age and younger are kind of feeling is that
Yeah.
you're
Well,
supposed to give things to me and I'm not really supposed to work hard for it. And I'm supposed to go, hey, it's
well,
mine. Thank you.
again, I'd say that there always have been like two streams of thought, and there's more than two, but there's always this idea that like, I want to get as far as I can with doing as little as possible, right? That's always been true.
Correct.
There's that COVID, if it did anything, it just created more pathways for people to see
100%.
that future. But it has always been true that there are way less people that are like, you know what? It doesn't matter what's handed to me or what's not handed to me. Those are the people that are going to stand out. You think about like AI. You think
Correct.
about like I can pull my phone out and tell it, hey, can you help me design a 30-minute speech on how the biometrics of something work? But like, it'll design something for me. Like, I could ask it to do it. Is it going to be good? No, it's going to be horrible because it doesn't know exactly what I want it to do. So people have this false sense of like, I've got all I need now. Like AI is going to make it easier. AI isn't going to make it easier to succeed. It's going to make it easier for the people that are willing to do the work to be successful, but it's not going to necessarily guarantee success for them. It's also going to make it easier for people like me who are employers to see who's not doing the work and who's like just being, what's the word I want to use? Being someone who is willing to just expect a job or expect this or that. It's like, well, you can't just expect success. You can't just expect to get what you're looking for. You have to work for it. That'll always be true. I I think that the other thing is there's also more people in the world now than there were before. The world just keeps getting bigger. So that's the other truth, I think. But is there a sense of entitlement? Yeah, I guess that's a thing that we can experience now, but that's always been there.
My next question is, how do you approach building a strong team culture at your store?
That is my favorite thing to talk about. Well, I have a lot of favorite things to talk about. That is one of my favorite things to talk about. I think that the most important thing that a business owner can focus on is the culture of their organization. And that is true whether you have 2 employees or 2,000 employees, because your culture is what drives your performance and your performance is what drives your results. So I would say culture is like the core of what you need to focus on as a business. And culture really answers the question, how does it feel to be a part of this organization? What does it feel like? Is it nice? Is it hard? Is it stressful? Is it upsetting? What is it? It also answers the question, how do the people that work in this organization make me feel? Do I feel ignored? Do I feel invisible? Do I feel cared about? Do I feel like I'm part of a team? Do I feel like I can do more than I thought I could? All of that comes from a culture. And you can be a part of a culture that doesn't pay any attention to those questions. And you're just in existence. You just are there, you go in, you punch the clock, you do your thing, you punch out, and you go home. Or you could be a part of an organization that strives for excellence, strives for winning. You think about like sports teams, think of the best sport teams out there. There's a reason that the winning teams win because they have great cultures. And there's a reason why terrible teams don't, because their cultures are terrible. You see it all the time. These teams bring in really, really great players and they flop because it's not about the player, it's about the culture. So I love that question. That's a good question.
And do you think that it helps drive obviously your sales, but also the customer loyalty? Meaning, if you don't develop the right team, your sales are going to go down, and then people aren't going to want to return to keep buying from your company.
Yeah, that's a good question. These are good questions, man. You're like a professional interviewer here. I would tell you that as a customer, you can tell what the culture of a business is. And the reason you can tell is because how the team is acting. Our brands, and I won't mention them, but I have worked for one of them. I've worked for one of the brands, and you walk in and they have thousands and thousands of locations all over the country, just like we do. And you walk in and you're going to get a very similar experience from one place to the next. Just your order number, you might get the right thing, you might not. You probably are going to wait for a while if it's busy. If it's not busy, your food just might be sitting on the counter waiting for you. But there's no interaction, there's no connection, there's no joy in the service. Where Chick-fil-A, I mean, if you go on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook and you look at Reels or whatever they're called, people are constantly making parodies of how friendly and overly excited Chick-fil-A team members are. There's a reason for that. It's because the culture at Chick-fil-A creates this idea that we're here to serve. So I think culture trickles down from the heart of the organization all the way down to the service.
And do you think that it goes outside of the company as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mentioned I'm going to Argentina. I went to Kenya earlier this year. Like people around the world are experiencing the culture that Chick-fil-A has to offer through people that are from Chick-fil-A that go to those places and do things like serve. I'm going to Argentina with an organization called the Maxwell Leadership
Okay.
Organization. I joined that organization because I had a leadership coach when I was a Chick-fil-A operator early on that was helping me think through, how can I be a better leader? How can I create a better culture? Well, now I go and do that for other people. I went to Kenya earlier this year because I have a nonprofit that I work with through Chick-fil-A that serves communities in countries like Kenya, impoverished communities that can see and do more, that we just go alongside them and help them think through how can they climb out of the poverty that they are in themselves without having someone else do it for them. And that's a very indirect result. I mean, I'm not taking Chick-fil-A sauce with me. Like there's no sweet tea getting made over there, but it's not necessarily about the food. It goes beyond the restaurant.
Obviously, everybody knows Chick-fil-A is known for their quality service. How do you keep the standard high day to day? And where also to add on that, where did the my pleasure come from as
Oh
well?
man. So again, Chick-fil-A standard is high because we strive for excellence. We have our current Chick-fil-A chief operating officer. His name's Cliff Robinson. With Chick-fil-A, since he was a team member years ago, he's got sort of a similar story as I do. He's got a few years on me though, and he did a talk one year for us at our annual convention that we do. And at that event, he said, you could serve some food. That's all right. But if you think about that word all right, there's two different ways to think about it. It could be all right, ALRIGHT, or it could be all right. Two words, ALLRIGHT. He said, it's really up to you as a business, as an owner, which one you want to be. Do you want your food to be all right, or do you want it to be all right? And we, to this day, still, we look at our product and our service and everything as, which one are we today? Which one do we want to be? Now, the My Pleasure thing, again, we have a lot of recipes at Chick-fil-A. We've got recipes for chicken sandwiches and for milkshakes. We also have a recipe for service. And that recipe for service is what differentiates us from the competition. We know you can get a chicken sandwich pretty much anywhere nowadays. That's not unique. But what is unique is when you walk in and order that chicken sandwich, you have a team member that smiles at you, that looks you in the eyes, that uses your name, and that says something warm and welcoming like, it's my pleasure. And Truett Cathy, he invented the chicken sandwich. I mentioned that back in 1946. Truett lived until he was in his into early 90s. He passed away in 2014. But Truett was just a great person. He was always trying to be innovative and think about new things. And he was on a trip one time, and he usually was doing conventions, or he was, visiting Chick-fil-A operators around the country. And he stayed at a hotel one time, stayed at a Ritz-Carlton. If you've ever heard of
I
Ritz-Carlton,
have.
they're very fancy.
They are.
And he was staying at a Ritz-Carlton one time, and he went to the desk and he gave him his check-in information, and he said thank you to them. They said, my pleasure. And he looked at the person that he was with on that trip and he said, yeah, that sounds real nice. I think we should say that in our restaurants. And so that one person behind the desk at that Ritz-Carlton sparked this idea for Truett that it's going to be our pleasure to serve. So that next year at that annual convention we had, Truett got up in front of everyone, and this is in the late 90s, early 2000s. And Truett said, when someone says thank you, I'd like for you to say my pleasure. And he had everyone repeat that. And then the convention ended, and Truett decided, I'm going to go to a couple of Chick-fil-A's to see how this my pleasure thing is going. And he went to one and said thank you, and they said, you're welcome. And he went to the next one, and he said thank you, and they said, you're welcome. And Truett started to realize that, well, his idea wasn't catching on too well. So he didn't get upset. He didn't lose hope. He waited till that next conference the next year. He got up in front of everyone and said, hey, I don't know if y'all thought my idea was real good, but let's try it again. And he said, if someone says thank you, you say my pleasure. And so after the conference, Truett went around and he went to visit different restaurants just to see how his initiative was going. And he maybe got one or two my pleasures. But again, most people were just saying, you're welcome. Well, Truett didn't give up. Truett was a guy who just was very persistent in what he did. And so that third year, he got up in front of everyone and said, hey, this is the third time I've said this now. And I'm wondering, maybe you didn't hear me the first two times, but we want to say my pleasure because it is our pleasure to serve people. It's a way for us to stand out. And everyone looked at each other and they thought, maybe Truett's serious about this. This is the third time he said this. So that was the year that Truett Cathy inspired all of us to start saying my pleasure. There's a fun fact. I was actually a team member at Chick-fil-A
Really?
before and after we started saying my pleasure, because I can remember the owner of my restaurant, Eric, coming to all of us and saying, there is no way that we will ever say my pleasure to anybody. Next year, Eric was telling us, whenever someone says thank you, you say my pleasure. So and that goes back to the culture question you asked me. Like there's this idea that we want to be loyal, we want to do what's right. And I think eventually Truett communicated things in such a way that people eventually saw his vision for what they were doing. Truett wasn't about, you weren't in trouble if you didn't do it. Contrary to what you might think and what TikTok might tell you, people don't get, kidnapped if they don't say my pleasure at Chick-fil-A. We don't terminate anyone for that. But we do ask them, hey, why isn't it your pleasure? Tell us about that. What is it what can we do to make this something that you enjoy doing? And that goes back to your culture question.
So it's what I'm understanding is that it's kind of taken from one company and then incorporated
Oh yeah.
into another
Yeah.
company's.
I think any idea has happened somewhere before in some way, shape, or form. And all ideas are up for grabs. Unless it's trademarked or copyrighted. You can't do that. But you can't copyright my pleasure. That's just not a thing. So I've been to a certain coffee chain where they have green logos, and I've ordered something and I've said thank you, and they've said my pleasure. And I was very impressed by that. Now, when I ask them, hey, have you ever worked at Chick-fil-A? They always say, yes, I have. So we go beyond the brand. A lot of times when people start saying it, it's hard to stop once you start saying it.
Now, my next question is, what's the leadership lesson you've learned that has stuck with you?
Wow, man, you are asking the great questions today. A great leadership lesson that I have learned that has stuck with me. There's a lot of things about leadership that I still to this day am learning. In fact, I think one of the best things we can learn as leaders is that the more you learn, you realize the less you know. So I think something that I could share that stuck with me that I would share with you and the people that listen to your podcast is when you think you've learned it all, you've reached the end of your learning journey. But when you realize that there's so much more out there to learn, you will continue to pursue that. As a leader, really never, you imagine this climb, like you're climbing as a leader. I believe leadership is a climb. That's like a mantra that I have. I think everyone should climb higher daily. That's what you should do as a leader. You should continue to climb. But you're not climbing necessarily to reach the summit, because the reality is there is no top to the mountain. You just keep going. When you stop, the moment that you stop climbing, you're done. You're finished. So you got to just keep climbing. And that to me is a visual analogy for what leadership really is. Does that mean that you're climbing over people? I don't believe that's leadership at all. Because if you get to the top of a mountain and you're by yourself, you're not a leader, you're a hiker. So when you're leading, the definition of leading is meaning you have followers. So who are you bringing along with you in the journey? That to me is what determines what type of leader you are.
So kind of what I understood is that you're essentially still the student. He's kind of reached their half potential a little bit and still has improvement and room to grow.
One of my favorite people at Chick-fil-A, his name is Dan Cathy.
Okay.
If you recognize the last name, it's because he's Truett's son. He was the CEO and president of Chick-fil-A for many years. He is now just the chairman of the board. I know, just the chairman. But he's passed the mantle of leadership on to other people at Chick-fil-A. But he still wears his Chick-fil-A name tag. And at the bottom of his Chick-fil-A name tag, there's a little red tab. I have these red tabs at my restaurant. The little red tab says in training, and it's for new team members. When we hire them, we give them this red tab and it says in training. And that way, if a guest orders something and the team member messes up, they know, oh, that's a new team member. Well, Dan Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A's son, has on his name tag a red in training tab on his name tag. He does that because he is communicating to the world that he is still in training. He's still learning. He's still growing. And so I think that is a mindset that we all should adopt as leaders if we want to continue to grow.
Some people won't get confused with it. Meaning
Well,
the fact that he still has
if you
training
saw
on his
if
name
you
tag.
saw him have that name tag, you probably would ask him like, Dan, did you forget to take that off? And it creates this conversation point. It allows him to then explain to them, no, I'm still learning. Now, what would you think if you heard someone who's been the president of $1 billion company like Chick-fil-A tell you that he's still learning something? It would make you rethink. If you are a leader who you think you know it all, it would make you rethink like, maybe I don't know it all. And that's why he wears it. because he wants to inspire people. He wants to challenge people. And he does. I mean, it caused me to tell you this story.
My next question is, what does a typical day look like for you?
I don't have typical days.
Really?
I'm intentional about my schedule. I know you and I have talked about this earlier. I have a personal assistant who helps manage my calendar and my schedule and my emails. Her name is Mindy. She is my boss. But I try my best to make a meaningful difference in the world around me as much as I can. There are so many things to do. There are so many places to go. There are so many people to see. I want to prioritize that. I mean, my number one priority, of course, is my son.
Sure.
He's 14. So he's my number one priority. He does actually work at my restaurant, so I get to have him as a member of the team. My next priority is my restaurant and the team that serves there. There are so many families that depend on the success of Chick-fil-A. So making a meaningful difference in those two areas takes up a lot of my time. And all of the things that I think through are really thinking about those two areas. How am I making a difference in the life of my son after I am gone? And what's the impact I'm having on the team that I get a chance to serve as the operator there at Bowie Marketplace? That involves the customers, that involves all the initiatives I talked about, that stretches all the way from here in Bowie to Kenya to Argentina to you name it. But does a typical day start at 9 and end at 5 for me? No. And I think that not that life is not for everyone, but for me, again, those three circles I told you about. The idea of purpose, my purpose is being met, and my purpose continues to grow. My time is incredibly flexible. I can choose what I want to do when I want to do it. I mean, if I wanted to go on golf vacations every week, I could potentially do that, but that wouldn't match my purpose circle, right? And then the profit circle, the amount of income. Chick-fil-A is a good career. I mean, am I living next to Bill Gates? No. Do I want to live next to Bill Gates? No, not really. But I'm able to earn the income that I want to earn doing the things. There's a sentence right there that 98% of people in the world will never get to say. And that drives me even more because I want to inspire people to actually make that sentence true someday for themselves. So that's my typical outlook, not necessarily my typical day.
People need to be a little bit motivated to do that to get what they want, meaning becoming the 1% that are able to get what they want, kind of what you just said a little
Well,
bit.
I don't know that I should say people should be motivated to get what they want. I think that people should be motivated to discover what they're here for. Like, what is it that you're in existence to do? Everyone has a purpose. Everyone does. Do most people find their purposes? Well, if by definition most is 51%, then yes, most people don't find their purposes. In fact, most people end up living out someone else's purpose because it's either they thought they should do this because someone told them to, or they never really think about what they're meant to do. So they just do what they do. So I would love for people to be inspired to learn what their purpose is. But do I think that people need to strive to be in 1% of any club? If that means excellence, then yes. If that means making more than everyone else, well, that's not what I'm saying. I think that again, those three spheres, they have to align. Doing what you love, doing it when you love it, and earning enough so that you can support yourself and the family that you have. Those are the three areas to be striving for.
So that's kind of important to focus on.
I don't think there's much else that's more important than that. And again, people spend most of their lives trying to find the answer to that question. So is Chick-fil-A the answer to that question? I'm not necessarily saying that either. You know, there are people I know that have tried for years and years and years to have a Chick-fil-A. Haven't, and they more than likely won't. And it's because it's not meant for them. They're not meant to have that career. And that's okay. I've learned a lot going to other countries. I go to Kenya every year, I mentioned, and one of my trips I was there and I was spending some time at a home with a family. We were eating lunch and they were asking me questions about America and thinking just their perception of America and how much we have here. And one of the people in the community looked at me and he smiled and said, we have something that you don't have in America. And I was so intrigued by when he said that. He was smiling and he said, we have something that you don't have. And I said, what is that? And he looked at me and he smiled and he looked around at the room and he pointed to everybody around the room and he said, we have this. And what he was talking about was the entire neighborhood. Everyone that lived on that street was in the room having lunch with them. And they were there because me and my group were there visiting them. And he said, we have this sense of community. We have this idea of contentedness. We don't have things. I mean, the house we were in was made of mud. It wasn't fancy, but they were some of the happiest people that I've ever met. And so it doesn't have anything to do with how much money you have or how many materials you have. Looking at what you have, what you do have, I've learned so much from going to places like that.
Next question is, how do you handle tough moments, think challenges, career issues, or business setbacks?
Wow, there's a lot of questions in that question. How do I handle all of those things? In other words, how do I handle difficulty? I think really the only way to answer that question, or I'm sorry, the only way to answer all of those questions with one answer is persistence. This idea that you can't just give up if it gets hard. You got to push through it. At the gym, you're never going to get stronger if you don't push past where you think you're going to fail. If you go in and you lift that 25-pound weight every single time you go in, you're never going to be able to lift more than 25 pounds. But when you try to pick up 45 pounds after lifting 25 pounds, you might not be able to pick it up right away. So you got to try and you got to keep trying, and it's going to hurt. Afterwards, you're going to be sore and you're going to be like, I can't walk for 2 days. I don't know why I even do this to myself. But eventually you get stronger because of the difficulty that you put yourself through. People don't realize that the difficulties are actually what makes you grow. You do not grow when you're comfortable. So when you can reframe difficulty and say, this is a good thing, you can actually look at it as, I'm getting better because of this, not this is horrible. And that's a mindset. I think you asked about this earlier. Like, people think, oh, everything should just be given to me. Well, that's the danger in a society where things are so easy to get. When you don't have to work for things, it creates this comfort that makes you not able to do. Discipline is part of persistence. You have to be disciplined in order to be persistent, because discipline is this idea that you're going to do it not because someone is expecting you to or someone told you to. You're doing it because you are expecting yourself to do it. You've put that on you. So it's not about making anyone else happy. It's about, you said you're going to do it and you do it. Or it's good for you, so you're going to do it.
And so I know that I'm sure for a lot of people, it's uncomfortable to push out of the comfort zone, or so a lot of people call it the safe zone, and the unsafe chartered territory of
Yeah.
not knowing if it's whatever it is going to work. Like you
Yeah.
said, going to the gym and knowing you have to do it, but benefit is getting into shape or putting on weight or something positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, my next question is, how do you measure success personally and professionally?
Man, you are asking all the hard. These questions are getting better and better. How do I measure success personally and professionally? I'd say the first thing that comes to mind is, did I accomplish what I set out to do? And that goes back to, did I have something I was setting out to do? Did I have a goal? Did I have a number that I was trying to hit, or a finish line I was trying to cross? That is a measure of success, is whether or not you did what you said you could do. When I became a Chick-fil-A operator, that was a finish line. I said, I want to be a Chick-fil-A owner operator when I was 17. At age 24, I hit that goal. Now, that could have been the end of my life right there. I am done. I have reached it.
100%.
I am going to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I did it, folks. Yay, right? But no, then the goal, and I will be very vulnerable and share this. After I own one, I said my next goal is I want to own two. Now I've been with Chick-fil-A for 16 years as an owner operator, and I have not yet had a second restaurant. Does that mean I'm not successful? No, it doesn't. And the reason why is because in that journey, I have identified so many other things that uh, that equal success. And for me, success is, again, going back to those 3 circles. We need to come up with a name for these 3 circles. I don't know what we should call them, but the 3 circles of life, right? I have found that if you look at life in that way, you can reach a level where you feel like you have hit success, you've accomplished things. And there's always more things. It's like, I'm never done climbing. Again, the analogy, keep climbing, you're always climbing higher. So when I reach the summit I've been climbing towards, I'm already thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to do. The other element of that I'll add is, again, with leadership, it's not just about you. It's about the people that you lead. And so thinking about, what are the people around me able to accomplish because of operations that I've given them, because of things maybe I don't even realize. I've had people come up to me and thank me randomly and say, Rob, you have inspired me to do this or that. And I've never even had a conversation with them about that thing. But they've said that to me because they said that they've observed various things that I'm involved in, or they sat in and listened to a talk that I did with them, or they spent time with someone at my restaurant that they were touched by. I would say that there's a lot of ways you can measure it, but if you don't have something that you're trying to measure, there's no way you can determine whether you're successful.
Some people can learn from not say that this is a good thing, but that some people can learn from other people's mistakes. Meaning, if you have a bad boss at a Chick-fil-A or whatever company, and the boss doesn't understand or have certain leadership principles from communication or delegation or anything else that's important.
I think the question I hear you asking is, can you learn from mistakes?
Correct.
Man, there's nothing better to teach than a mistake. Failure is the greatest teacher that you have. And again, when you look at things and difficulties in a negative light, you miss the opportunity. There's no greater teacher than failure. And when it's someone else's failure, that's the best kind of failure because you didn't mess up or you didn't fail. So learning from what other people mess up. Eric, my mentor growing up, he passed away in 2019, by the way, so he's not with us anymore. But he always had these sayings, and I remember all of the sayings. I can't recall all of them right now, but he had Ericisms. I called them Ericisms,
Okay.
where he had these like word sayings. Like for example, one of them he would say, "If you love me, you'll tell me if I have spinach in my teeth." And what that means is if I've got something that's wrong and you don't tell me, it means you really don't love me. You don't care about me. So, there are important reasons why me as a person, I should tell people when they've got something going on. And that's my motivation. And so one of his sayings said, he said, don't learn. He said, well, I'm trying to remember exactly how he used to say it. He said something to the effect of the best place that you can learn from mistakes are from someone else. It's kind of the line I just gave you a minute ago.
Correct.
And that was an Ericism. He would say, don't be the one to mess up. Learn from me. I made all these mistakes. Don't learn from them for yourself. Now, did I listen to him on that? No. I've made my own mistakes, and that's unavoidable. Someone that wants to do something, if you want to do anything, you're going to mess up. If you tried to walk without messing up, just imagine as an infant, you're going to fall flat on your face. But if you want to walk someday, you got to keep trying. So it's a simple analogy, probably overused and maybe a little cliche, but you're going to fall down. Whether you get back up again is your choice.
It's either the halfway point or this is where I can. What is your plan to be successful moving forward, and what does success look like to you?
My plan to be successful moving forward. Man, I tell you what, Spencer, you're hammering these great questions here. I would tell you that, so I have goals in life. I have things that I want to accomplish. Think that for me, success looks like when I'm gone, hopefully that's not anytime soon.
Yeah.
But when I'm gone, I would love for there to be people around the world that have been impacted in a positive way, in a meaningful positive way. Not just, oh, Rob was nice, but rather my life was different because of something that Rob said or did. And my greatest measure of that success, again, is my son. I think that there's a lot of roles I get to have in life, but being dad is my favorite. And so if he is successful and nothing else works out for me, I would be more than thrilled at that. Everything else would be a bonus. Now, he's not the only thing I'm working towards. I've got a lot of other irons in the fire, but there are a lot of things. And again, that's why I love this analogy so much. It's this idea of just keep climbing, climb higher and do it daily.
Now, what's allowed you to reach your goals that either that you said or that you wanted to do personally? 'Cause I know that a lot of people during the start of the new year, their resolutions, let's say they set 5 to 10 goals, and then you write it out or you type it out, and you look at it towards the beginning of the year, but then slowly you start to not look at it, and then it fizzles out, and then you go, what were my goals? I knew I wanted to achieve these things, but I kind of pivoted away or didn't direct my focus to it. And so now I'm ticked off that I'm not in shape or I don't have the money that I want or whatever else.
Have you ever been to an archery range?
I have.
So you've seen someone pull an arrow back and shoot it at a target?
Correct. I've done it before too.
Okay, so you are going to understand this analogy then. Have you ever seen someone take 2 arrows and try to pull them both back at the same time and hit the target? I have actually seen it. It's been rare. I've only seen it once, and it was somebody at a circus. Someone that had specifically trained to do that thing. In fact, I think that they pulled back maybe 4 or 5 at a time and hit whatever it is they were shooting for. Now, whether there was some sort of like trick involved, I don't know. But every other time I've ever seen anyone shoot an arrow, they only pull back one arrow They pull it back as far as they can and they shoot it at whatever target they're going to hit. And sometimes they hit the target and sometimes they don't. I mean, I've watched Lord of the Rings and Legolas got a lot of bad guys, but he didn't get all of them, right?
Correct.
So, and that, by the way, is my like favorite movie. If you wanted to know, I love Lord of the Rings and J.R.R. Tolkien and all of that. But um, I think that analogy is true when you, as a person, want to accomplish something. You've got to ask yourself, well, how many targets are you trying to hit? How many arrows are you shooting at it? Like, if you've got too many things you're shooting out or too many things you're at, you're going to hit a whole lot less. There's an ancient proverb that talks about, he who chases two rabbits never catches either. Right? I don't know if that's Chinese or where that's from, but I think that we try to do too much sometimes. I know after hearing all of the answers to the questions you've asked me, you may be, Rob, you're the epitome of that. Like, you try too much. The reality is I try something until I either fail or succeed at it. And if I can get it, I will do it again. And I almost automate that to where I can do it regularly. And then when I will try something new, I try my best to really only focus on trying one new thing at a time. But if I've done it before, I can just keep doing that thing. Or as a business owner, I can hire somebody to do that thing so that it keeps going without me. That's another element of leadership that we may not have time to get to. But this idea of empowering others to do work that you started, that's a meaningful thing to do when you're a leader.
And do you think that a lot of people, that they have too many goals and that they don't consolidate it down to maybe one or two manageable goals?
Well, I mean, if I want to get A's in school and I want to hit 215 on the bench press, I could probably do both of those things. They're not, it's like, no, I can only either focus on getting an A in chemistry or getting, better in the gym. Well, no, they're different. So it's not about having too many goals. It's about prioritizing what's important, what you want to do, and then putting the time and energy into working towards those goals. So again, success and all of the things that you're chasing, the more time you have to focus on the goals you have, the more likely that you are to maybe reach the things that you try to do.
My next question is, what motivates you on the tough days to keep pushing forward?
Purpose. Remember that purpose circle I told you about?
Yeah.
That purpose circle is there for a reason. Simon Sinek is an author, and he's got a YouTube talk out there that's real famous, that's been around for a long time, and it's called Start With Why. If you've never read that or read his book or watched that YouTube, it's a TED talk. Go and pay attention to that, because when you understand why you do what you do, it doesn't matter whether it works or not the first time. You're doing it because you know why you're doing it.
Now, is it similar to having a mission statement or a purpose?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's generally why I go back to that purpose circle.
Now, my next question is, what advice would you give to somebody younger who wants to run their own business one day?
Well, I'd say purpose. Figure that out. What is your purpose? And then another P word is people. Find a person, find a mentor, find somebody that has done the thing that you want to do and learn as much as you can from them. Now, that could be a mentor like I had. I worked for Eric and he helped me. He didn't do it for me, but he gave me a lot of things to think about. That could be in a book. That could be a podcast. That could be a class. That could be someone else, a friend of yours. It could be someone you never meet. But finding someone that you can learn from, that's done it, that's gone before and has been successful. I would tell someone, if you try to do it by yourself without anyone helping you out, you're not going to get real far.
And so, do you know Diary of a CEO?
It's familiar to me, but I've never, I don't know exactly.
What he does is, there's essentially, he asks the current guest, the past guest left a question for the next guest who comes on, but they don't know who it is.
Okay.
So the question that was left for you is, what's the biggest regret in your career? Something you didn't do but wish you had, and how did you deal with that experience?
The biggest regret, I want to make sure I repeat your question back. What's my biggest regret? Something that I didn't do that I wish I did, or did that I did wish I didn't?
Correct.
Okay. My biggest regret. I would start by saying that if you live a life that does not have regrets, you haven't tried enough things. This is a good question. I think of an answer that's going to be like, wow, this is a good answer. But the first thing that comes to mind is I did not pursue my master's degree. When I graduated college, I just had a bachelor's. Do I need a master's degree? No. I've actually started my master's degree 2 different times, and I'm about to start for a 3rd time. And I've quit every single time because I just didn't have time, because I didn't prioritize. I don't need to do this right now. My biggest regret, though, if I had to think about it, would be there are people that have worked with me over the years, and I've had thousands and thousands of team members in the 16 years I've been a Chick-fil-A owner operator. But I have not stayed in touch with or followed the stories of a lot of the people that I've led over the years. I've stayed in touch with some, but I wish I would have been more intentional about knowing where everyone is and what they're doing and how their journey is going. Because for me to know whether or not I've helped someone do something successful, I should probably know where they're at and what they're doing. And I just really haven't done that. So I'm more intentional about that now. My network is a little bit bigger. I'm more intentional about the time I spend when I'm at my restaurant. I spend time talking with team members or with leaders, mainly leaders. I spend time with my leadership team and just asking them how they're doing and challenging them or taking them on various, leadership development experiences. But if I could do it all over again, I would probably say, give me your name and number and let's stay in touch to everyone that's ever worked for me.
And then, kind of piggybacking off of that question, if you could ask the next guest one question, as I said earlier, you don't know who the next person is going to be. What would your question be?
What would I ask someone else? This is a really good idea. I like this question. All right, I'm gonna steal a question from a famous podcaster. I really like this question when he asks it. He says, if you could buy a billboard that the entire world could see, what would you put on the billboard? It's your billboard. You can put on it whatever you want. What would you put on the billboard? And that's the question.
Okay. Before I get to my final question, do you have any questions for me?
So I've shared a ton of things. This interview's gone a little more than what you expected it to go over, which is great. I'm happy to answer your questions. What is something that you heard me share today that maybe sparks something in you, whether it's an interest or an inspiration? Is there anything that I've shared today that you're like, I'm going to be different today because you said that?
I would say trying to be intentional and also knowing your why a little bit, but also trying to stay in knowing where people ended up, if you worked with people or just as a whole, instead of kind of seeing people for the short duration that you work with the people and then they phase out and then you don't know where they ended up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Great. That means I made a difference.
And then my last question is, who are 2 to 3 people you think would be amazing future guests?
Man, I love that. You're getting that solidifies it solidifies this podcast continuing. Well, let me see. Great future guests. Okay. His name is Roy. He is the headmaster at Rockbridge Academy. Essentially, he's the principal.
Yeah.
He's the head of the school. But he and I have developed a friendship over the years, and he's got a great outlook on youth and growth and people that want to accomplish more. So he's a good person to think through. You interested in meeting in someone international?
Why not?
Okay. Her name is Mercy.
Okay.
She is in Nairobi, Kenya. She is a good friend of mine. And when I go to Kenya, her and I have done leadership teachings together. She's come here to America. We've done different things together. And she has a really great perspective on leadership and growth from an international perspective, from a Kenyan perspective, really, because she lives in and is from Kenya. And then a third person, I don't know if do you have a dad?
Do.
Have you ever interviewed your dad?
I haven't.
I would say your dad would be a good guest for your podcast. I think that my son and I started a podcast years ago and we did one episode, and I don't even know how old he was, but I have the recording still in my phone, and it is still to this day one of my favorite things to listen to. It had no point. It was just like a test episode. He was running around the room and I asked him questions, and I listened back and I think to myself, I wish I would have done that. I wish I actually would have just recorded a little conversation with him and I over the years, because it would have meant a lot to me. So I think you and your dad doing a podcast together could be a really cool way to create a memory for him as a dad and for you, so that you'll be able to look back and hear it.
Now, this is one final question I just came up with.
Yeah. I love new questions.
Do you think being a parent, parents are scared of their kids trying new things? Let's say their 19 to 20-year-old kid wants to go out and start a business in the consulting sector, or AI, or whatever it is. Do you think part of it is the parent not wanting their kid to fail, or do you think part of it is also the parent not wanting knowing how do I say it? I wanna say part of it is they know that their child can do well, but part of it is comfort and not societal norms, but I would say a matter of, like, change, meaning you're comfortable with certain things, but you're uneasy if this new thing happens, if our YouTuber or whatever it is.
I would tell you it really depends on the parent and it depends on the child. I couldn't speak for, a large swath of the population, but I can tell you as a parent, and I would hope to say that I'm a good parent. I think that that's important if a parent wants to be a good parent, that's the assumption I'm making. And the question is that the parent is a good parent. I think they want the best for their kid. And I think they want them to not experience pain of defeat or pain of rejection or pain of failure. When my son hurt himself when he was little, it hurt me that he hurt himself. And it didn't physically hurt me, but it hurt my spirit, it hurt my heart, it hurt me, and just thinking through that he had to go through that. If a person is to be successful, we've talked about in this interview, they have to go through failure. They have to go through disappointment. They have to go through defeat. You can't guarantee success. So a parent has to know for a child to be successful in their life, they have to go through things that might not work out for them. And if a parent has that perspective, then I think that they will be better served in what the child will do. Now, I will flip that around.
Okay.
And I will say that parents have been there and done that. And I grew up with parents who thought they knew better than me. And of course, I was like, no, I know what I want, and I know what I'm going to do. And guess what? My parents were right, and I should have listened to them better. And this is like a paradox, because you as a parent want your children to do well, and so you're guiding them with advice, and the child thinks, I want to be free, I want to be independent, I want to try my own thing, I want to chart my own path. But there is always wisdom in a loving parent's words. When a loving parent has something to say, there's always wisdom there. Is it right? Does it mean that it will be that way? No, it doesn't mean that. Remember, my mom said I should work at Chick-fil-A. My dad said I should work at Potbelly. Both of them loved me. Both of them had good intentions. I followed through on both of the things that they said. The only reason I'm still with Chick-fil-A is I think God just stepped in and said, I don't think so. You're not leaving Chick-fil-A. You're going to stay right here. That's the only way I can describe that whole thing, because I did both of the things that they suggested. And well, actually, now that I think about it, my mom and dad initially told me I shouldn't pursue Chick-fil-A as a career. Like, my mom got me started there, but then when I told her I wanted to be an owner, she was like, no way, don't do that. So that's even takes that deeper. It's like, I didn't listen to my mom, and yet here I am. So there's just so many things to that question. But I think the takeaway from that is, if you're a parent listening to this, making sure that you understand that there is a failure involved in success. And if you're a kid listening to this, realize that the loving words of a parent always have wisdom in them. Whether they're right or wrong, there's always wisdom.
And you think a parent should be supportive if um supportive in whether it's an idea or whatever else, versus saying don't really try that idea out or whatever it is and experiment with it and see if it works, versus just saying no, don't try it.
So I love this question, and I'm going to take this above the whole parent and child dynamic, because I think in life, whether it's a parent that's telling you you can't, or whether it's someone else telling you you shouldn't, it does not matter who says what to you as a person. If you have the purpose written in your heart that this is what I'm meant to do, and you've done the work to understand what it takes to get there, and you go down that path and you start the steps to get there, that is the best chance you have to reach what you want to do. It doesn't matter what else you have. You can't look at outside factors. Those outside factors aren't going to determine you and your journey, but you have to know whatever path you're on, it does not mean that you take the steps that you will reach the end of the path. There's no guarantee. That is just the truth. I mean, when I park at Walgreens and I walk inside and I want to go buy some cough syrup, I promise you I will get it. That's pretty guaranteed. But this is not that, right? I'm sorry, that was like a funny, weird analogy that just hit me. But it's like, if I want to, there's things in life that I know I can get, but the journey to your dreams, it doesn't matter whether your parents believe in them or not. You have to believe in them. And even if you do, it doesn't mean you're going to reach them. So I hope that doesn't like bring everyone's hopes and dreams crashing down. It's just that's the reality of it. There's a really good book. I know we're kind of wrapping up here, but there's a
Yeah.
really good book. I've read a lot of good books in my life. I think that having a good library of books that you read is what helps you grow and get better. One of the best books I've ever read is a book called Good to Great
Okay.
by Jim Collins. It's a book that shaped my career from a very early age. Before I became a Chick-fil-A owner operator, Good to Great. And he talks in there about something called the Stockdale paradox. You ever heard of this?
I haven't.
All right.
No.
So there was a guy named Stockdale. His last name was Stockdale. He was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. And I don't have this story memorized, but I know the gist of the story was that this guy got captured and he was held prisoner for years and years and years in Vietnam. A lot of his buddies that got captured with him died, but he didn't. And he was tortured just like them. And when he got out, they interviewed him and asked him what it was that kept him going. And he said there's two things that kept him going. The brutal facts, or the brutal reality that he was a prisoner of war and that there was no guarantee that he would ever get out. I mean, he could have died there. That's one paradox. The other is this hope that maybe someday he could. And when he had both of those things in mind, that paradox, that's what kept him going. So that's just one thing that they teach about in that book, Good to Great. And Jim Collins, I would call him one of my mentors. I've never met the man. I have heard him speak live, but that book helped guide me. So there's a takeaway for you. Read Jim Collins' book, Good to Great.
I will do that.
Are there any other questions that I can help you with?
You know what? Yeah, this just came up. How do you know if somebody's a good mentor or not?
There's a lot of things that you can look to. I'm trying to think of maybe what's a good one, like one that answers multiple questions. Do they spend time with you? Are they generous with their time? And are they telling you things that you don't want to hear? Again, the whole spinach in your teeth example. If someone loves you, they're going to tell you if they have spinach in their teeth. If someone only tells you what you want to hear, they're probably not a good mentor. But if they challenge you and they're like, you know what, I wonder have you thought about this differently? Or if you really thought this through, that could be a good mentor. The other indicator for a good mentor is, have they accomplished anything in their life? Have they done the thing that you want to do? If they have seen success in the area that you want to be successful and they're willing to spend time with you and they're willing to challenge you, those are 3 good reasons why someone should be your mentor.
Well, I think part of what I was trying to ask is, you know, some mentors, they go, you pay me X amount of dollars, I'll give you one-on-one guidance or advice or whatever. And then other people, you have a speaker that goes to your school or whatever and speaks for 45 minutes or 30 minutes, and then you connect with the person and then you kind of become friends. I think what I was trying to drive at is, there certain things that good mentors do that people look at and say, this is actually a good mentor? And is there the opposite, where people do the things that people look at and say, this is not who you should get towards as a mentor?
Yeah, I love that question. There's a few things I'd say at the beginning. You know, there is a difference between a coach and a mentor and a teacher and a trainer and a guide. Like, they're all actually different things. And so when you say the word mentor, to me, what a mentor is, someone almost like you're the apprentice to that person. You're working very closely alongside with them, either working for them or you're spending time with them outside of whatever it is that you're doing. And they're gifting their time to you. You're not necessarily paying a mentor to mentor you. Whether you pay them or not, that's not the important differentiator. You know, you think about a coach, like football coach. Coach is like, we want to win.
Correct.
And we want you to be performing well. A mentor is someone that has done the thing that you want to do before, but they're not directly related to whatever it is that it's like, if you don't win, they're going to be okay. And again, mentors can be authors of books that you're reading. They could be speakers of a conference you go to. They could be your dad. There's a lot of ways that mentors can be in your life. But again, it's this idea of, are they willing to speak truth into you? And is the truth helping? Because, you know, you can have a good mentor and be a bad mentee. People can not listen to the advice that they're given. That also, as a mentor, I have people, if I spend my time with someone and I'm gifting that to them and they're not willing to, like, I don't see in them the difference that my words are meaning to have, I question, well, why am I spending time with this person? I only want to give my time in places where I'm going to see it grow. And I think that as a mentee, if you want to be mentored, just realize that it's important to take the time and investment that someone's giving to you and take it and use it wisely. Treat it like it means something.
So treat it for granted and not as
Yeah.
though it's something that's guaranteed or whatever.
I would say, being grateful. Gratitude is a spirit in life that you can have, and I think gratitude can get you a long way. Gratitude is the opposite of what's the word you used earlier, where people expect things to be given to them? Entitlement. Gratitude and entitlement cannot exist in the same world. It's either you are grateful or you entitled. So being grateful is where you got to be.
Is there any advice or anything that looking back you would say, this is what worked or this is what I would recommend? Meaning, if you were to talk to your 18 or 19-year-old self looking back,
Just keep climbing. That's what I would tell them. And that's what I did. That's what I'm going to keep doing.
is there anything that you learned or wasn't expecting from either a young age or in general that you've gained or have learned that you weren't expecting, whether it was better communication skills or better team leading or teamwork?
I think that we will often sell ourselves short on what we can do. We will often think, I can't do that. That's not something that I'll ever be good at. And when you think that way, you're right. You won't. But when you open your mind to what you potentially could do and you say, what would it take for me to do that? That opens a whole new world. So I would say that shifting your mindset from I can't to what if I did or what if I could.
So it's more about self-belief and what you tell yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The most important person that you talk to every day is yourself. And that is so cliche. You probably have seen that on t-shirts, but it is the absolute truth. There's nobody more important that you talk to every day than yourself. I mean, if you're a person of faith, obviously speaking to God is of primary importance, but you as an individual, the voice that you hear every day is your own.
And do you think a lot of people try to silence it or
Well,
cover it up?
again, this is what I'll go back to. It does not matter. If you have people, if the entire world is against you, it doesn't matter. If you think about one of my greatest mentors in my life is Jesus. And you think about his life that he lived. I mean, he paid the ultimate price because people didn't like him. So, and yet he left this massive impact on the world. And I would say that there are so many other people like him that have lived, that have left an impact on others when no one else would listen to them. So it doesn't matter, I think, when people are for you or against you. If you are for you and you have your purpose aligned, just keep going. Just keep climbing. I'm going to keep saying that. I like that.
You're making me want to ask one more question. It's going to be a little bit of a different question and a pivot. As a whole, and also as a owner and operator and as a team leader, is there ways that you know the right people to be around and also who are the right friends and the right circles, whether it's pushing yourself?
Yeah, this is a great question. Like I said, you've had some really good questions. Do you know have you ever heard of Jim Rohn? R-O-H-N,
Seems
Jim
very
Rohn.
familiar.
Jim Rohn is a leadership author. He wrote a lot of books. Napoleon Hill is another guy who wrote a lot of books. John Maxwell, he's a guy I follow. And this is something that I've heard each of them say in one way or another, but you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So you don't have to necessarily look at everyone you spend time with. Just look at the people that are the closest to you and look at the 5 people in your inner circle and ask yourself, are they an image of who I want to be? If they are, then you're with the right group of people. If they're not, well, that's okay. You just need to find some new people to spend a little bit more time with. And this is a shift I made when I was young. You don't have to physically spend time with people to be like them. You can read their stuff. You can listen to them. You can pay attention to their podcasts. So, just physically being around somebody isn't what makes you like them. It's the things that they say and do that inspire you. That's what impacts you. So find 5 people that have done what you want to do and make them the people you surround yourself with.
I mean, is there a way to not do the opposite, but to change it up? Meaning if you're not in the position or where you want to be, but you know that it's beneficial to get into essentially or where you want to be, whether it's getting into shape or having discipline for.
I mean, you get to decide where you spend your time mostly. I mean, you can't decide your classmates in school or you can't decide your workers at work unless you're the owner of the business, which is motivation for you to own your own business. But even then, do I have people that work with me that I'm like, how did they get hired? Like, Yes, but that's just the reality of the world. People aren't always who they appear to be on the outside. When you get to know someone, they change. They can be different. So you have to be discerning as a person. It's something that's a never-ending thing. You will never have a group of the 5 most perfect people around you at all times. You will have friends that leave, you'll have friends that die, you'll have friends that move away, which is why it's important for you to be intentional about where are you learning from? What is your sources? How are you investing in your own growth? And that can be done through books or podcasts or classes or working for someone that you're like, you know what? I want to learn from you. I was very blessed in that I kind of stumbled on that with who I worked for with Eric. But because my eyes were open to it early on, it allowed me to be more intentional moving forward with everything else.
Now, do you think people find their purpose early on, or do you think it's mid-30s or later on?
I don't think there's an age. I think that, Truett Cathy, I think he was in his or 50s when he opened Chick-fil-A. Now, was Chick-fil-A's purpose? It was a residual effect of his purpose. I think that you're never too old or young to determine what it is that the purpose that you're here for. So no, I don't think it has anything to do with age.
I think why I was asking is because I know that a lot of the time you're supposed to know what you want to do, and then you're supposed to chase after it, whether it's a business or anything else. But
Yeah, I think so. But I also think that sometimes there's wisdom, and I don't want this to seem like it's going against something I've said earlier, but there is wisdom in waiting. There's wisdom in waiting for the right time, waiting for the right window of opportunity. Don't rush to things thinking that if you don't do it now, the opportunity will be gone. Well, there are some things like that, but it's a lot better to make a sound decision that you've waited to make versus rushing to a decision that you think is right.
you have any final or closing remarks?
No, I'm grateful that you had, that you put together these questions, and I'm inspired by what you're doing. You're trying to make an impact on the world by creating content I think that people can listen to. My only wish is that what I've said will impact you and others in a meaningful way. But thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful.
Of course. You got a closing statement.
Yeah.
Obviously, Rob, thank you so much for joining me on the Young Entrepreneurs podcast. I've learned a ton from hearing your story and your insights. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, share the episode with a friend, and leave us feedback. It really helps us grow. This has been episode number 15. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you very much.